the Chase Thomas Podcast. For people who have nothing but time to kill.
Just still up in the air at this point.
Final thing here. You know we're going to talk some football real quick here, Ryan Schumpert. We have to talk Tennessee football real quick. Tennessee football depth chart. Do you feel better or worse? We did tight ends last week. Better or worse about the Vols offensive line room in 2025 than you did about it in 2024?
Man, that's a good question. Slightly better because of the upside, I guess.
Because of the what?
Upside.
Ooh.
The upside at tackle, I should say. Like, they're going to be worse to me in the interior. Like, that just doesn't even seem like much of a debate. But
which is kind of concerning when you talk to people who are like more football like aficionados about like how important the interior is for Heupel's scheme. Because I mean, all runs are up the middle. Like they're doing. Yep. I mean, you've got to be really good in the interior to be effective in Heupel's scheme. Like that was kind of the reason that they were like, you can survive with Jeremiah Crawford and Gerald Mincey and stuff with the tackles if your interior is really good. I mean, you should always be able to run the ball if the interior is good. So that's a little concerning potentially.
Yeah, maybe. And I guess I think it's going to be worse, but I don't think it's going to be way worse. It wasn't like Tennessee's guard play was great last season. I mean, it's going to be really, it boils down to this in the interior. They're going to probably be a good bit worse at center and maybe be about the same at guard. Like I don't
center, I have no idea, man. I think guard's going to be about the same. Like I think guard, you're not going to notice. Like I don't think you're going to notice the difference between Andre Carrick and Pendleton and or Wendell Moy. I don't think anyone's going to be in kneeling on Saturday in November and being like, you know, like, I don't know, Jim. Like, Wendell Moy was just, I don't know if he's got Andre Carrick anymore. I don't know. I don't think you're going to notice that. Center, you say like it might be a good bit worse. I don't know. Like, William Satterwhite's talented. Max Anderson's talented. Like, Cooper Mays started as a redshirt freshman. Like, he got in and he plugged away. I mean, and he was fine. Like, I won't rule out that one of those guys takes the job and is just solid right away. Like I'm not going to overrule.
That's fine. I mean, Cooper Mays was a all SEC, second team type guy. He was really good.
Yeah.
So just from that nature, it's going to be a step back, and it could potentially. You're right. It could just be.
But in 2021, they were good with Cooper, is what I'm saying. Like Cooper was good as a young player in Tennessee's game. Yes,
he was. Doesn't mean that Satterwhite or Anderson's going to be though.
Yeah, but that's fair.
I mean, they could be. And yeah, I mean, the thing at tackles is just like, I mean, Lance Hurd, he just has to be a lot better. I mean, that's where the bet is. His second year as a starter, he'll take a big step forward. And look, David Sanders, I have a hard time thinking he will not struggle early in the season if he is, in fact, the starter. But I think that the ceiling there is a good bit better than what Tennessee got with a rotation of a John Campbell with uncertain whether his knees could hold up each week, and Dane Davis.
I mean, they had to rotate a bunch. Like him and Dane were having to rotate, and it just didn't work. So I agree with you that I think Sanders has a higher floor than those two. Like I don't know.
I don't know about the floor.
I think Sanders is solid. Like at right tackle, my gut is Sanders is a plug and play, and he's going to be solid. Like I will be surprised if Sanders is not solid right away, that you don't notice.
See, that's where Caden Proctor's a heck of an offensive lineman, and he was bad the first 6
Seaton wasn't though at Colorado.
Yeah, no, that's true. But he also didn't play in the SEC. He didn't have Georgia coming to whatever Colorado Stadium is week 4.
It's not great that they played Georgia very early in this year with Sanders. Welcome to the SEC. Like your first SEC game this year is Georgia at home, which is not great.
It's kind
but I will say about Hurd, the difference this year though is I think Tennessee has realistically more options at tackle than they did a year ago, where they were like, we have to play, we have to rotate John Campbell and Dane Davis at their right spot. I don't think that's the case this year. Like if Lance Hurd is struggling, or Lance Hurd's, I mean, you have Larry Johnson, who was okay in that Oklahoma game, but you also have Bennett Warren a year later. We'll see where Bennett Warren's at. You saw that Jesse Perry was getting positive buzz behind the scenes. He might be solid at a tackle spot. Like I think they have more options to go to if it doesn't go well this year than they did a year ago. I think there are certain guys who are older that are in this scheme outside of like the true freshman sensation like David Sanders. I'm more confident that the tackles is just going to sort itself out. Like I think Tennessee has enough options now that they're going to be okay no matter what.
I do think they have more options, but when push comes to shove, if they're asking Bennett Warren or Jesse Perry, two redshirt freshmen, to play left tackle with a true freshman at right tackle, man, push comes to shove, I'm not going to feel very good about that if that's the case. You're right, more options, but if that's how it ends up, like, I have a hard time thinking that's going to go very well. Not that those guys can't be good players in turn. Not that those guys won't be better backups than what Tennessee had last year. You know, that could be possible. But it's still not something I think anybody is going to feel great about it if you really have to roll that out for an extended amount of time.
Well, and I also think, to wrap things up, I mean, everything on offense is evals this year. Everything's eval. And you look at it, you're like, you got to hit two key evals, David Sanders and William Satterwhite. These two have got to be good and ready to play because Tennessee, I think, needs them. If you want to get back in the CFP, if you want to win a game that you haven't won in the Heupel era, Georgia and or on the road at Tuscaloosa or Gainesville,
yeah,
they're going to have to be good. Like, they just have to be. Like, there's just no way around it. And those are guys you brought in, you identified, you spent a lot of money on, you went and you were like, these guys just have to be good, especially Satterwhite. Like, we saw what happens with the center play, with the scheme and like tempo and everything else. Like, this is a huge spring, and maybe it's at Max Anderson. I don't know. Like, it could just be Max Anderson, and we're just penciling in Satterwhite. But I don't know. They have to get that right because once the season gets going, you don't want to be in a pinch where you're trying to figure out who's going to be at center because the Syracuse game in Atlanta does not look right, and you have some fumbling issues. Or what was the Alabama kid who had the fumbling issues at center? He transferred.
Yeah, transferred to Ohio State.
Yeah. You don't want to be in that spot.
You're right. And I think you just hit the nail on the head, like with something you said a minute ago. Just very broad view of the season. Tennessee's going to make it back to the college football playoff. They're going to have to do something they haven't done under Josh Heupel and either beat Georgia or win in Tuscaloosa and Gainesville and win a big time road game. So yeah, I completely. I think that's the overview of the season. That's the point right there. It's going to be tough to do that. And if Tennessee achieves, like in this past year, Tennessee went 10-2. It didn't feel like, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was a great year for the program. It was a big time stabilizing year to say that 2022 was not just some one-off. And you did it in a different way. I think all that stuff is important, and I don't mean to diminish that. But this program didn't take a step forward and do something that it hadn't done under Heupel. If they're going to get back to the college football playoff this year, they're going to have to take a step forward and do something they haven't done under Heupel.
And that's win a big-time road game. Like a road game where
or
they're...
beat Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, you beat Georgia, then it's like, who cares, honestly, if you win at Gainesville or Tuscaloosa? Because if you take care of your business the rest of the way, then you're in the playoff. But maybe this is the year. Georgia's got real questions. Maybe this is the year. Gunnar Stockton coming in. Gunnar's not the guy. Georgia hasn't figured out what all their new pieces there. I don't know. I still
see it when I believe it.
Yeah, I think, and I've been really high on Alabama this offseason. I don't feel good about it. Though I think right now of the three, we should do this updated polling throughout the offseason, Ryan, of like which way, like how would we rank the 1 through 3 of most likely for the first ever Heupel win here this fall. I've been on one Florida for a while, and I'm going to stay on that one. Florida getting moved to November, I think it might turn out to be the saving grace for Tennessee in making the CFP in 25, is that Florida is going to have to go through that brutal schedule again, and they might be checked out by that point. And it's a little bit different. Tennessee, I think, there's an avenue I could see that Tennessee avoids a lot of those early pitfalls in Gainesville late in the year if they know they've got a playoff to play for, and if they win that game, they're in again. So I don't know. My gut is they treat it like a Vanderbilt game, and even if they dig a hole with some kick return touchdowns, I think Tennessee getting Florida in November, I think, will prove to be the best elixir to getting them back to the CFP, because I don't see Tuscaloosa or Georgia in 25 for them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that getting that game in November is a bigger help. It is a little bit wild to me with Tennessee's history in Gainesville that you're going fall behind 14-0 in Gainesville. Not a big.
They've never done it in November. They've never fallen behind 14-0 in November.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Again, I agree with that. Because
I think if they win that game, if they go into it, I think there's a strong possibility going into the narrative that week is if Tennessee wins, they're in the CFP. Like that, I think
obviously that's very plausible.
So if that's the case, I think there's just I think they'll be locked in. I think it's going to help them that they know if they just take care of this.
So. I sure hope they'd be locked in playing at Florida.
I'm just saying, it's a little bit different early in the year.
They're not locked in at Florida.
But in the beginning of the year, you're like, oh, we dropped it, whatever. We can earn it back later on in the year. Now, you go to Gainesville this fall, I think there's a real possibility you go in, you're like, you win and you're in. It's a playing game.
I mean, I agree with the second part. I don't know. If any of these Tennessee teams have been going into Florida with, we'll be fine if we drop it. That's just such flawed logic. Not to say that you couldn't be right. They haven't, but yeah, I don't know. And I will say, again, typically I think it's better to get Florida in November. This past year would have been the opposite. It would have been way better to go to Gainesville in September than it was in November. So, we'll see what happens. Obviously, the dynamic changed. They had the quarterback change. And
I don't know. I think Lagway is a better matchup for Tennessee than Mertz. Mertz is the type of quarterback that kills Tennessee. Like Howard did it. Those guys, those accurate over the middle.
I mean, I agree with yes, I think that's accurate. But Lagway also is really good, I think, or is going to be really good. So we'll see. But yeah, I agree with that. Mertz is the type of guy that kills Tennessee.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.